Discover the incredible moment. She awoke in a stranger's bed and found out he's her new boss. Emily blinked against the soft morning light streaming through the lavish curtains, her mind racing to piece together the last night. The crisp edges of fine sheets contrasted violently with the familiar comfort of her own worn bedding. A panic surged through her as she turned to see the man sleeping beside her, a dimpled smile even in slumber, dark hair tousled but somehow charming. Jack Thompson, the very CEO she'd interviewed with just days before. "What have I done?" she whispered, breath catching in her throat. This wasn't just about her. It couldn't be. The image of her son, Jake, darted through her mind, his wide eyes searching, his small arms wrapping around her for comfort. Was this entire experience a reckless gamble? A mistake that would ripple through their lives? She'd fought tooth and nail to create stability for him, and here she was, tangled in a bed for a night of careless indulgence beneath sheets that felt like clouds. Emily quietly rolled away, careful not to disturb Jack. Each movement stirred conflicting emotions. Guilt gnawed at her, while a spark of excitement warmed her core. She had dreamed of working at Right Marketing, the place that represented everything she wanted for Jake. But was this an opportunity, or simply a foolish diversion? The stakes had never felt higher. As she surveyed the lavish space around her, the extravagant decor only served as a reminder of the life she had always wanted, but could never afford. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Jack stirred awake, his eyes finding hers, a bemused expression blooming across his face. "Rough morning," he quipped, as if jesting about a late-night meeting with friends. But the warm smile that followed caught her off guard, melting away the last of her defenses. Would he see her as just a single mother, battling for a foothold, or as the strategic mind that designed campaigns to capture markets? She breathed deeply, the air thick with uncertainty, a new kind of challenge forming here. "What are you thinking?" Jack asked, his tone shifting to something more sincere. It triggered her instincts to open up, to share her passion for marketing, how she'd always believed every storyline mattered, every detail could shift perspectives. Instead, she hesitated, clinging to frustration over the idea that he was just another privileged man, despite his apparent interest. Could she trust him? The growing tension trampled her thoughts, fear edging in. What if he held her past against her? What if the whispers from jealous colleagues, secretly plotting her downfall, plunged her into the depths of humiliation? Emily wrestled with the realization that she needed Jack if she ever hoped to break free from the chains of her small-town existence. Yet he knew nothing of her reality, her struggles, her hopes for Jake's future. As she prepared to confront him about their complicated emotions, her phone vibrated ominously on the nightstand. A notification that could shatter everything, the message she'd been dreading since her interview. Just as her heart raced to match the urgency of the moment, the weight of the choice looming over her grew dangerously heavy. Would she fight for her ambition, or risk everything on a fragile connection with the man beside her? Emily's heart thudded as she stared at the buzzing phone. The notification icon glowed ominously, a potential black hole of consequence swallowing the excitement that had kindled the night before. Demand for her presence was meant to bring clarity, yet it felt like the sharp edge of hesitation slicing through her resolve. "Emily?" Jack's voice cut through her thoughts, warm and inviting, yet grounding her firmly in the reality they both faced. "Is everything all right?" She forced a smile, an instant reflex against the whirlwind of her emotions. Any hint of nervousness could be interpreted as weakness, and she couldn't afford that, especially not with him. "Just needed a moment," she replied, her voice steadier than she felt. Each word felt like stepping over a tightrope, balancing between personal and professional stakes that seemed ready to snap. Jack propped himself up on one elbow, the sheets falling away, revealing the expanse of his toned chest. A chill crawled down her spine, a combination of attraction and anxiety. This wasn't just a man she was becoming involved with, he was her boss, a figure that held her career in his hands. "Would you prefer to go home, or—" he started, but she saw the hesitation. What could come next? A suggestion to stay, to talk more, or a dismissal to minimize the awkwardness of the situation. "I think I should go. My son will be waking up soon," she replied, her tone sharper than intended. The reality of Jake's existence, his innocent dependence, charged the air between them. Jack's expression shifted, understanding surfaced behind the playful demeanor. "Of course. But can we talk later, about everything?" "Yeah, okay." The words slipped from her lips with more confidence than she felt. The personal pull of the moment lingered heavily as she slipped out of bed, each motion filled with the bracing chill of impending decisions. As she dressed, rapid-fire questions ricocheted in her mind. What would happen during their upcoming conversation? He was charismatic and powerful, but that made him inherently intimidating. Would he see her not just as an employee, but as a woman trying to stand against all odds? What would she reveal about her past? By the time she stepped out of the lavish loft and into the brisk morning air, she felt like a fighter, adrenaline marking every nerve ending. No, she wouldn't back down. Not this time. The stakes in her life had escalated beyond just financial stability. It was about identity, ambition, and fearlessly pursuing the future she wanted for Jake. Her thoughts burgeoned with renewed determination during the drive. She could not dismiss her chance at right marketing, and even if Jack might confuse things, her skills couldn't be erased by her circumstances. In fact, she resolved to showcase them, create brilliant campaigns, push the envelope, and blow those whispers away. Once home, she sank into the routine of mothering, her mind shifting to the practicalities of her day. Breakfast for Jake, assembling packets for school, cleaning the remnants of last night's dinner. Yet amidst the mundane, an undercurrent of exhilaration electrified her senses. A message pinged. It was Jack. "Let's meet at the office after hours." The proposal felt like both an invitation and a challenge. The moment had arrived, where boundaries would blur and ambition might intertwine with passion. She swallowed a lump in her throat, fully aware that night would redefine everything. The looming choice hung weighty in the air, embracing love or ambition. As night fell and shadows stretched across her modest living room, she couldn't shake the sensation that personal revelations awaited her in that glass-walled office. Would she discover her true potential, or would she risk it all for a connection that might be fleeting? The time had come to face the music, and she was ready. The office felt almost unrecognizable in the muted glow of the evening lights, each corner draped in a soft, anticipatory silence. Emily stood for a moment just inside the entrance, the scent of polished wood and faint coffee lingering in the air, reminders of countless late nights spent strategizing, dreaming of campaign success. But tonight held a different weight. Tonight would be about laying her cards on the table, both her aspirations and her fears. As she walked deeper into the heart of the workspace, her mind raced. She rehearsed potential dialogues in her head, scenarios that slid from hopeful to confrontational in the blink of an eye. What if Jack didn't view her as an equal? The thought brought a tightness to her chest. Yet she also understood that she couldn't allow those fears to dictate her actions. She was prepared to assert herself, but was she ready to navigate the complexities of their relationship? Jack emerged from the shadows, framed by the sleek lines of the glass walls, his expression revealing nothing. Wry confidence radiated from him. There was no mistaking the allure of his presence, but tonight there had to be a shift. She needed him to see her, truly see her, not just as an employee but as a fierce competitor in her field and a devoted mother. "Thanks for coming," Jack said, his voice smooth yet tinged with an urgency that seemed to match her own. He motioned for her to take a seat, yet Emily remained on her feet, rooted by a swirling mix of emotion. "Listen, Jack, before we dive into business, I need to be clear," she began, her voice tinged with an edge that surprised even herself. "I'm not just your employee. I have ambitions that go beyond this job, and I want you to understand that I'm ready to fight for my opportunity, not just for myself, but for my son." Jack studied her intently, and for a fleeting moment, Emily felt the electricity of their earlier encounter buzzing between them. Could he look past the confines of their professional roles and see her vision? She pressed on, fueled by a mix of trepidation and resolve. "Your leadership at Right Marketing holds immense potential, but I want to be part of defining that potential. I have ideas, bold ones, that can position us ahead of the competition." He leaned back, arms crossed, and for a moment, an evaluative silence enveloped them. Emily felt her heart race. Would he dismiss her, play it safe? Or would he challenge her back, driving her to prove herself further? "That's what I admire about you, Emily," he finally said, his tone shifting. "Your courage. You have the potential to elevate this company. but I want to ensure you're prepared for what that means. What do you mean? She narrowed her eyes, sensing an undercurrent in his words. Success can come with sacrifices, often sacrifices that hurt, he replied solemnly. Are you willing to face the backlash that might come from a shift in dynamics, especially between us? As he spoke, a flicker of doubt coursed through her. Could she balance ambition and her personal convictions without losing herself in the process? She realized this was more than just a conversation about work. It was a profound inquiry into her own capabilities, a test of her values against the merciless backdrop of ambition. I won't back down, Emily asserted, the conviction in her voice surprising even her. If I falter, it won't be for lack of trying. I'm ready to embrace the risk, even if it means challenging you. Jack's lips curled, packed with amusement but tempered with seriousness. I appreciate that, but it takes more than resolve. It takes strategic action. The weight of their exchange settled around them, electric and exhilarating. Suddenly, it wasn't merely about her job or her relationship with Jack. It was a resignation to her own potential. With every word, she was redefining herself, wrestling between vulnerability and the unwavering need for validation. Yet, as excitement surged, a more pressing realization loomed. How far was she willing to go in this pursuit of ambition? Let's see if I'm right about you, Jack urged, putting forth an unexpected proposition. Emily's pulse quickened. The moment of truth lay before her, one that could change everything she had ever envisioned for herself and Jake. Was she ready to take a leap without knowing where she might land? Before she could respond, the door swung open, yanking her back to the present, as her colleague Cora walked in, the very embodiment of chaos. Emily, we need to discuss the upcoming presentation. There's a crisis. Faced with the urgency, Emily felt a tension unfurl in her chest. Were she and Jack caught in a whirlwind of ambition that promised both risk and revelation? The balance hung precariously. One choice could tip the scales in either direction. Preparing for the unexpected had just become paramount. Would she rise to the occasion? As the words settled into her mind, she realized the next moment could alter everything she believed about success and herself. The air crackled with urgency as Cora burst into the room, her anxious energy a stark contrast to the electric silence that had enveloped Emily and Jack. For a brief second, the weight of potential transformation slipped through Emily's fingers, replaced by the undeniable reality of their chaotic work life. She cast a quick glance at Jack, whose expression had shifted from keen interest to mild annoyance. Cora, can it wait? Jack's tone was sharp, and Emily noted the slightest twitch at the corner of his mouth. He was visibly irritated at the interruption. She, however, felt the familiar rush of responsibility course through her veins. No, it really can't. Cora's insistence filled the room. The client's been demanding updates, and there are revisions to the design that need your input. Taking a deep breath, Emily turned back to Jack, uncertain but resolute. This was her moment, a chance to illustrate both her commitment and her ability to handle pressure. I can handle this, Jack, she said, her voice steady. Let's address the crisis now. We can regroup later. Jack's gaze pierced through her, gauging the gravity of her assertion. A flurry of emotions darted across his features, and for that brief moment, she felt she was standing on the precipice of something monumental. I agree, he said finally, though his tone still held traces of a challenge. But understand that your willingness to dive into this doesn't mean the conversation about your ambitions is over. With that, he slid his hands into his pockets and leaned back against the desk, prepared to watch her assess the chaos. Emily felt a surge of adrenaline. This was an opportunity to display her strength under pressure. Cora, let's go over what we have, prioritize the main concerns, and let's get our strategy aligned with the client's expectations. Cora blinked, caught off guard by Emily's commanding presence. Right. I'll pull up the latest revisions. Emily mentally checked off her priorities, the tangible stakes of the ongoing project sharpening her focus. As Cora rushed to gather the necessary materials, Emily caught Jack's scrutinizing eyes. His silence loomed like a challenge, and she realized that this was more than just dealing with a work crisis. It was about affirming her place in this company, proving she could master the intricacies of leadership alongside Jack. In the flurry of numbers and graphics, the weight of her realization pressed heavily on her. She wasn't merely fighting for her professional identity, but also creating space for personal growth, for herself and for Jake. She grappled with the friction of wanting Jack to see her as capable, while simultaneously needing to maintain her own boundaries, a difficult balancing act. Here, Cora exclaimed, returning with a stack of papers thick with notes. These are the latest comments on the design from the client. They're concerned about the branding alignment. Emily scanned the content quickly, assessing and calculating as she dove into solutions. The thrill of the challenge ignited a fire within her that had been stifled by uncertainty. She began proposing adjustments, an easy flow of ideas spilling forth as confidence seeped back into her. As she spoke, she noticed Jack leaning against the desk with a faint smile, a mix of admiration and intrigue on his face. Her heart raced. This was a shift in their dynamic. She could feel the weight of her ambition tangible, urging her to rise higher. And what if we leverage the current social media trends to enhance visibility? We could create a campaign that captures emotional resonance linked to our product's benefits. Cora nodded fervently, scribbling notes as Emily's energy grew infectious. Exactly. You're not just finding solutions, you're thinking ahead. Jack's approval wrapped around her like a cloak, igniting a sense of camaraderie she had yearned for, yet feared could remain out of reach. With every passing minute, she felt boundaries crumbling, not just between her and Jack, but also within herself. However, a small voice lingered in the back of her mind. Was this newfound collaboration merely a flicker of connection, or a gateway to something deeper? As the last of the discussion drew to a close, Jack's gaze shifted towards her, laden with unspoken words. "I think you've just proven your worth under pressure, Emily," he mused. A sudden clarity swept over her. Was she simply a talented employee, or was there a deeper connection waiting to be unlocked? Just as she was about to voice her thoughts, her phone buzzed. A string of notifications lit up her screen, all potential chaos unfolding at once. Emily gripped the edge of the desk, heart racing. The crisis wasn't resolved, it had merely shifted form. With it came the realization that not only her work life was in flux, but the very nature of her ambitions, and the relationships that would define them, stood on uncertain ground. Would she seize the momentum she had built, or would fear snare her with its tendrils once again? As she considered her next move, she was painfully aware of the truth that the battlefield had just expanded, and she would need to navigate it with even greater precision and courage. In the throes of success and trepidation, she felt poised on the edge of self-discovery, the path ahead labyrinthine and riddled with decisions that would either fortify her journey or unravel it. As tension coiled tight, an undeniable thought pierced through her. The real test lay ahead. Would she step further into the unknown, facing both professional peril and the magnetism of the personal connection she now sensed with Jack? Emily's fingers danced nervously over her phone display. The chaotic flood of notifications clamoring for her attention felt like a siren call pulling her from the current moment. Cora was still buzzing with excitement from their earlier exchange, but Emily's mind landed on the murmur of uncertainty circling her heart. Each ping seemed to echo a doubt she had valiantly tried to silence. "Focus, Emily," she muttered under her breath, redirecting her gaze away from the screen towards Cora, who was still scribbling notes. "Let's tackle the client's feedback point by point. What do we want to prioritize?" Cora blinked, catching the intensity in Emily's eyes. "I think the brand alignment is crucial. They want to feel connected with the product's identity." "Agreed. Let's break that down. What do they see as misaligned?" Her voice was firm, each word laced with the gravity of purpose. As Cora laid out the specifics, Emily could feel the momentum build. She had chosen to confront the immediacy of the project rather than retreat into the uncertainty of her feelings about Jack. Yet that lingering question hovered, a mix of vulnerability and excitement, intertwining with the professional chaos surrounding her. The dialogue between Cora and her transformed from mere task management into a dynamic exchange, rejuvenating Emily's spirit. Each suggestion pieced together felt invigorating, and soon a plan emerged, structured, clear, and undeniably fueled by the collaborative energy that arose between them. "Let's present this revised proposal directly to the client. Show them we are not just reactive but proactive," Emily proposed, her vision sharpening with clarity. Cora looked impressed, admiration sparking in her eyes. "That sounds great. I can prepare a pitch deck to highlight our strategies." Contrary to the initial burst of anxiety, Emily's confidence flourished in the wake of assertiveness. For the first time in what felt like ages, she felt the impulses of leadership gently nudging her, as if the universe had whispered that she was prepared for more. Jack, leaning back against the desk observing, seemed to take note of this metamorphosis. The earlier challenge in his gaze transformed slightly, curiosity now mingling with scrutiny, as he observed the dynamic shift between Cora and Emily. She dared to glance up, catching his expression, and the room felt charged once again. "Don't just stand there, Jack," Emily said lightly, her voice teasing but her gaze steady. "You've been part of this process. What do you think? Your insights are valuable." His smile widened, unmistakably impressed. "Fair point. I think you're on the right track. Your proactive stance is exactly what we need to show the client this isn't just a hiccup, it's an opportunity." With every word from him, she felt a growing sense of recognition deep within herself. This was her chance to not only solidify her position, but to define her professional identity on her own terms. Yet, with each collaboration, the murmur of personal connection nagged at the back of her mind. In the midst of this newfound synergy, Emily's phone pinged again, a reminder of a meeting she couldn't afford to ignore. The balance of her newfound confidence teetered as a familiar dread crept in. There was an all-hands meeting scheduled soon, one that often felt like a gauntlet run. "Cora, can you pull together a summary of what we discussed? I'll need it for the meeting." "Absolutely. Consider it done." Quickly, Emily excused herself, stepping outside for a moment to breathe deeply. The corridor was quieter, stripped of the palpable tension inside the room. Yet she also felt the distance forming anew, a looming uncertainty as she headed into this next meeting, voice rehearsing articulation, trying to keep the doubts at bay. But with each step back into the upcoming conflict, she was all too aware of the fact that professional growth often required navigating murky waters of interpersonal connections, and in choosing one path, she could inadvertently complicate another. What awaited her in that meeting room, with Jack's presiding authority? Would she reinforce the barriers of professionalism, or was she risking stepping into territory that could shift everything she had begun to build? As the door swung open, she steeled herself, prepared to confront not just the business challenges ahead, but the growing interplay between ambition and connection that might forever change her story. Just as she entered the meeting, she caught Jack's eye across the conference room, and something unspoken passed between them, a fleeting conviction that would dictate how both of their lives continued to intertwine. But was she strong enough to navigate both challenges without losing herself in the process? The question hung in the air, teasing a pivotal moment ahead as she took her seat. Emily settled into her chair. The crisp smell of the conference room's polished wood filled her senses, grounding her. As she glanced around at her colleagues, the familiar tension in the air prickled at her skin, reminding her of the stakes involved. She could feel the weight of their expectations pressing down on her, each one silently urging her to make her mark. The meeting kicked off with Jack leading the discussion. He exuded authority and confidence as he introduced the agenda. Yet despite the words flowing from his mouth, Emily found her own mind drifting, thinking of the potential ramifications of their recent interaction. She understood that with every shared project, every idea exchanged, the boundary between professionalism and personal connection was becoming increasingly blurred. As the meeting progressed, she focused, preparing herself for the moment her voice would join the conversation. This was not about Jack, despite how his presence ignited a confusing mix of enthusiasm and anxiety within her. This was her platform, a chance to shape not only how others perceived her work, but how she perceived herself. "Let's discuss our marketing strategy moving forward," Jack prompted, throwing the floor open to input. The silence hung briefly, a palpable pause that demanded courage. "Emily?" He glanced over in her direction, his eyes expectant. Her heart raced, but there was no turning back now. "I believe we should reframe our approach, focusing on emotional storytelling to better connect with consumers. It's not just about the product, it's about how it reflects their identity," she articulated, noting how the room shifted slightly as attention turned to her. The initial skepticism gave way to nods of understanding. As Emily continued to build her argument, she felt a reservoir of strength swell within. This was her expertise. She was speaking her truth distilled from experience and insight. Jack's gaze remained steady on her, a slight smile hinting at his appreciation. "Great point, Emily. Emotionally driven narratives could set us apart in this competitive landscape," he interjected, affirming her. It was a throw of fuel onto the fire, ignited by her earlier crisis of self-doubt. It solidified her resolve. Buoyed by the encouragement, Emily leaned further into her presentation. She outlined specifics, targeted demographics, unique storytelling angles, and collaborative engagements. Each idea coalesced into a coherent narrative that captivated the room and even prompted a discussion among her teammates. Jack interjected from time to time, adding his insights, but Emily felt a shift. While he guided them, she felt the reins of her own narrative tighten in her grip. A transformation was occurring. She was no longer just a participant. She was wielding her voice, contributing to the collective vision with confidence. Yet, as she closed her presentation, she felt the stirrings of doubt creeping back. Jack's approving nod had meant everything, yet there remained that uncharted territory beneath their professional interaction. She was growing, but could she navigate this fine line without losing herself amidst the complexity of their evolving relationship? As the meeting concluded and chatter filled the room, Emily felt another ping of her phone, this time vibrating insistently in her pocket. She hesitated for a moment, weighing the importance of the message against the exhilaration of her recent triumph. "Emily, that was brilliant!" Cora exclaimed, breaking into her thoughts. "Thanks, Cora. I felt empowered," she replied, careful not to reveal the hesitation still lingering just below the surface. It bubbled up unbidden. What would happen next? But it was what flashed across her phone screen that truly rocked her composure. It was a message from the senior management team about her next project assignment, and suddenly, the implications of her connection with Jack became starkly clear. Would she be ready for the challenge of working more closely with him, particularly after today? And would this proximity test her newfound voice, or would it unravel the delicate balance she had begun to establish? The tension spiraled as she noticed Jack approaching her, his expression unreadable. Emily's pulse quickened with both anticipation and dread. Today may have been a turning point, but what lay ahead was shrouded in uncertainty. "Emily," he said, his voice low and measured, "can we discuss your ideas further?" Just like that, the momentum shifted, opening the door to possibilities she had only dared to imagine. But at what cost? "Of course, Jack," Emily replied, trying to keep her voice steady, even as her mind raced with the implications of his words. They moved to a quieter corner of the office, the bustling chatter fading into a low hum behind them. The space felt confining, her heart beating erratically as she considered their new dynamic. "Your ideas about emotional storytelling are really promising," he said, leaning against the wall, his arms crossed casually yet radiating a subtle intensity. She could almost feel the electric charge between them, a reminder of the blurred lines they were navigating. "I'd like to explore how we can integrate that into our next campaign. It might be a good opportunity for you to lead." Lead! The word resonated deeply in her, stirring a mix of exhilaration and trepidation. She had just begun to find her voice in meetings, and now was being handed leadership. "I think I have a few concepts that could work," she responded cautiously, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. "Good. I'll set up a one-on-one soon to brainstorm." He studied her for a moment, that intense gaze making her stomach flutter. Was it admiration or something more? "You're growing in this role, Emily. I'm impressed." His words warmed her, yet doubt threatened to unravel her newfound momentum. Was she truly capable? The idea of moving into a leadership position, especially under Jack's watchful eye, ignited both her ambition and her anxiety. She was ready to prove herself, but the thought of closeness with him while balancing professionalism stirred a confusing conflict in her. "Thank you," she managed to say, swallowing hard. "I've been working on finding ways to connect more with the audience, but I hope it doesn't come off as too personal." The vulnerability in her voice surprised her, but she needed to confront the implications of what their partnership could mean. Jack shook his head, a knowing smile surfacing. "That's the magic of storytelling. It is personal." His eyes softened for a fleeting moment, and Emily felt her barriers wavering, mesmerized by the potential of what lay beyond their professional exchange. As they returned to the others, her mind churned with possibilities. Each step felt heavier, the stakes climbing. If she was to lead, it meant taking ownership not only of her ideas, but also her role within the team, and within her interactions with Jack. Would their professional rapport withstand her evolving feelings? And if she truly embraced this opportunity, how would she reconcile her growing attachment to him? The next days flew by with meetings and brainstorming sessions where Emily's enthusiasm began to shine. She sought out feedback, explored ideas with teammates, and actively participated in discussions, always with the reminder in the back of her mind. Jack could elevate her career, but tying her personal feelings to professional outcomes could be disastrous. Yet, in each interaction with him, she felt the line growing thinner. Their shared glances lingered a moment too long, and her heart would race as they discussed ideas late into the evening. The thrill both stimulated and terrified her. Emily was terrified of jeopardizing everything she cherished, her career, her authenticity, her burgeoning sense of self. One afternoon, as they wrapped up a particularly vigorous discussion, the air thick with unspoken words, Jack drew closer, close enough for her to catch the subtle scent of his cologne. "I appreciate your commitment, Emily." Her breath hitched slightly. She nodded, unable to articulate the cocktail of admiration and anxiety swirling within. "I'm just glad to contribute," she replied, the phrase somehow benign, yet layered with unvoiced longing. But reality gripped her as the office clock ticked steadily, marking the passage of time. She was at a crossroads. Could she maintain control within her professional life, or would her personal feelings lead her into uncharted territory? As they exchanged their goodbyes for the evening, Emily's heart raced with both anticipation and dread. She could feel the challenges mounting. Jack was more than just a colleague. He was a catalyst for her growth. And while she could feel herself awakening to new possibilities, the cost of a deeper connection loomed ominously in the shadows of her mind. The phone buzzed again, startling her out of her reverie, another message from the senior team announcing an important presentation next week. This was not just another task. This was an opportunity to truly define herself. But could she do it while carefully walking the line with Jack? Emily stood in the doorway, contemplating all that had transpired. The thrill of the future ahead pulsated as she began to formulate a plan. But with each step forward, she couldn't shake the feeling. How would she steer clear of becoming too close to Jack when everything about their connection felt so tantalizingly off balance? And just like that, she knew the time had come to confront the question that wrapped around her mind like vines. Would she have the courage to separate her personal yearnings from her professional aspirations, or would the urgency to embrace both lead to her downfall? The hum of the office buzzed with a nearly palpable energy as Emily prepared for the upcoming presentation. Each desk was a canvas of scattered charts and vibrant notes, but amidst the chaos, she sought clarity. Her ideas about emotional storytelling had taken form and were now stacked in a neat presentation folder, yet doubt nagged at her, threatening to erode her confidence. She struggled to silence the questioning thoughts. Were her concepts compelling enough? Did she truly have what it took to lead this campaign? As the presentation date approached, she felt a tightrope of expectations beneath her, swaying perilously with her emotions tethered precariously to Jack's presence. There was no escaping the way he pushed her to strive for more and, paradoxically, how much his approval mattered to her. In the days leading up to the presentation, Emily threw herself into preparation. She honed her talking points and rehearsed her delivery, scrutinizing her every word. Each time she paused to gather her thoughts, she found herself imagining Jack's reaction. Would he appreciate her insights? Would her ideas meet his approval? But as her anticipation grew, so did the realization that she needed to detach her value from his perception. It was time to believe in herself as much as he seemed to. She recalled the words a mentor had told her years ago. Leadership begins within. It was an ultimately personal battle. She would have to assert her identity not only in the corporate sphere, but in her interactions with him. The day of the presentation dawned with a mix of excitement and dread. Standing before the conference room, Emily took a deep breath, feeling the weight of all her preparation swirl within. As she entered, she saw colleagues seated and waiting, but Jack was perched near the back, his eyes fixed on her with that steady, magnetic intensity. The presentation unfolded smoothly at first. Emily felt herself enter a flow state as she articulated her vision for the campaign. The reactions from her teammates were encouraging, nods and smiles confirming she was on the right path. Yet, as she glanced toward Jack, his expression was harder to decode. Was he impressed? Disappointed? Halfway through her discussion, a sudden rush of nerves surged through her. She needed to address not just the project, but her evolving professional identity. In portraying emotion, she began, her voice steady, I believe we create a dialogue with our audience that is not just about the product, but their real, human experiences. The room absorbed her message, but as she caught Jack's gaze, she felt an urgency to communicate more. An idea sparked inside her, a desire to not only present but to connect on a genuine level. What if she turned this moment into a conversation rather than a monologue? Jack, could you share your thoughts on how we can further engage the audience through our storytelling? She inquired, mentally clenching her fists as anticipation twisted in her stomach. His eyes lit up as he leaned forward, his enthusiasm bubbling over. Absolutely, he responded, standing to contribute. As he spoke, Emily felt a sense of buoyancy. This wasn't merely about impressing her boss anymore, it was about creating a collaborative vision. As the meeting drew to a close, applause filled the room, not just for her, but for their shared engagement. Jack offered her an approving nod that ignited warmth in her chest. That moment sparked a revelation. She had stepped out of her shadow and into her power. But as the applause faded and everyone dispersed, Emily caught Jack's eye one last time, realizing her journey had only just begun. Could she keep this newfound sense of agency while navigating the complexities of her feelings for him? Outside the meeting room, Emily's heart pounded with exhilaration and uncertainty. She had proven to herself that she could hold her ground, yet the complexity of her attachment to Jack loomed like a specter in her thoughts. How would they continue to work together with this tension hanging in the air? And with her newfound confidence, could she steer their professional relationship into a space that embraced both her ambitions and her emotions? Or would she find herself losing the balance she had so painstakingly acquired? As she pondered, a message flashed across her phone from Jack, requesting a meeting to discuss the campaign's trajectory further. The invitation was tempting but fraught with implications. What would she be willing to explore this time, and where would that journey lead them? Emily stared at her phone, Jack's message flickering in and out of focus. The casual request for a meeting felt loaded, and she fought against the impulse to let her imagination spiral into scenarios that could easily distract her from the professional progress she had just made. Breathe, she reminded herself. She wasn't just anyone. She had proven her mettle in front of the team. She had taken ownership of her ideas, allowing her voice to resonate, not through Jack's approval, but through her authenticity. Yet the prospect of sitting across from him again brought with it a mix of anticipation and apprehension. They had shifted the dynamic, and her feelings now hung like a fragile ornament on a tightly spun web. As Emily prepared for the meeting, she focused on her recent accomplishments. She reflected on the satisfaction that came from steering the conversation instead of simply following it. But the specter of Jack's influence lingered, tainting her triumph with questions of dependency. Could she foster this collaborative spirit while avoiding the pitfalls of personal entanglement? Stepping into the conference room, Emily instantly noticed the shift in atmosphere. The space felt charged with an energy that hinted at unresolved tension. Jack was there, already seated at the table. He looked up as she entered, a hint of a smile playing on his lips that sent a bolt of electricity through her. Was it admiration, or was it something more complex? "Thanks for meeting with me, Emily," he said, gesturing for her to take a seat. "I wanted to discuss not just the campaign, but how we can maintain momentum moving forward." The conversation flowed into unfamiliar territory. The discussion about strategy quickly evolved into a more profound look at their goals. But as their dialogue deepened, Emily found herself caught in a swirl of thoughts. Was Jack's leadership style a reflection of her ambitions, or was it exerting control over her newfound confidence? "Your insights on emotional storytelling really resonated with the team," Jack remarked, his tone now tinged with something she couldn't quite decipher. "I believe you have a gift for connecting ideas with feelings. We should explore how to use that strength more strategically." His words swayed her, sparking pride but also discomfort. Was he guiding her career, or was there an underlying intention he had yet to reveal? She needed to balance her gratitude with her resolve, ensuring she remained in control of her trajectory. "Thank you, Jack," she replied, maintaining her composure. "I believe harnessing emotional engagement will give us a solid edge, especially in interviews and consumer interactions." As their exchange progressed, Emily developed a keen awareness of her body language, wanting to ensure her confidence didn't appear as vulnerability. A new internal dialogue surged within her. Wasn't this the territory she had hoped to claim? The power to articulate her vision without conceding her autonomy? But as they brainstormed ideas, unexpected tension crept in. Jack's sidelong glances carried a weight she hadn't noted before. Did he see her as a partner, or did he view her progress as a reflection of his leadership? The very connection that empowered her also awoke a need to confront him. With her heart pounding against the wall of her chest, she made a bold decision. "Jack, can we pause for a moment?" she blurted, surprising even herself. "I need to clarify something. Our dynamic might be changing, but I want to ensure we're both comfortable within it. I'm eager to collaborate, but I won't compromise my professionalism." He fell silent, meeting her gaze with an intensity that made the air thick. Emily held her ground, aware now that this exchange wasn't only about their project. It was about defining the boundaries of their relationship. Just as Jack opened his mouth to respond, a rapid knock echoed through the door, cutting through their charged moment. Emily's heart raced, her breath hitching in her throat. What could be waiting on the other side to disrupt her burgeoning clarity? The moment had been presented to them. What lurked behind that door could alter everything again, forcing them to confront their own uncertainties. Would it be a challenge, an opportunity, or a complication that risked everything she had just achieved? The door swung open, revealing Cora and another team member, Josh, both breathless from the conference room chaos. "Sorry to interrupt," Cora exclaimed, glancing between Emily and Jack, who appeared caught off guard by the intrusion. "We just got updates on the client's feedback." Emily felt her moment of confrontation evaporate in an instant. A flood of disappointment surged through her. She had built the courage to set boundaries, but now faced yet another distraction. Jack's expression shifted, frustration mingling with amusement as he turned away from her. "All right, let's hear it," he said, waving them in. As they absorbed the new feedback, Emily listened intently, but felt herself retreating into the background, her earlier surge of empowerment faltering beneath the weight of the unexpected interruption. Cora and Josh highlighted the client's concerns, but Emily's mind drifted to the unfinished conversation with Jack. Their moment had been so close, yet so fragile, and she realized that reclaiming her power meant more than just mastering the workplace. It also required addressing the emotional complexities around her. After their discussion wrapped up, Emily stepped outside for a moment to breathe, the corridor echoing with the cacophony of office life buzzing around her. She pulled at the edges of her confidence, cherishing the thrill she had felt earlier, but disappointment gnawed at her resolve. She needed to reconnect with herself, harness that energy, and regain the momentum she had built. That evening, after a long day of reconciling the client's ideas with her own, a message from Jack arrived, illuminating her phone screen with his familiar name. "Can we talk later? I want to wrap up some things regarding the client's feedback." She sat down heavily, a mixture of anxiety and anticipation. Here was another chance to clarify the mix of personal interest and professional ambition that had been simmering between them. It was time to assert herself again, to embrace her transformation not just as a marketer, but as a woman cultivating agency in both her career and personal life. Later, she found herself in Jack's office, the surroundings familiar yet tinged with an unfamiliar tension. Jack leaned against his sleek desk, his posture relaxed, yet the intensity of his gaze suggested an underlying seriousness. "Thanks for coming, Emily," he began, scratching the surface of pleasantries that felt like warm-up exercises for a more significant conversation. "I wanted to ask your thoughts on the client feedback, specifically how it aligns with our vision." Emily was acutely aware of how their conversation now hovered between the boundaries of professional and personal. "I think the feedback is valid. Blending emotional storytelling with what the client expects is crucial. We need to position our narrative to resonate at deeper, more relatable levels." Jack nodded, visibly engaged, yet something in the way he was studying her made her heart race. "I appreciate your perspective. It shows you're more than a cog in the machine. You're someone who can influence our direction." In that moment, she felt the shift tighten, the dichotomy of their roles blurring against the backdrop of her desire to both excel and connect. "But," she pressed, "we need to ensure that our momentum doesn't get lost in personal relationships overshadowing professional boundaries." Jack met her gaze, the air thick as their eyes locked, revealing a spark of vulnerability. "I agree," he admitted, his voice low and sincere. "It was never my intention to blur those lines. I respect your drive, Emily, and it's why I want you leading this project." The shift of his words prompted a wave of clarity. She had long desired his recognition, but now it felt complex and confronting. "I want to lead, Jack, but I also want to ensure that I remain my own advocate, that we keep the integrity of our work intact." He took a step closer, palpable energy igniting between them. "I admire that about you. You're not just a talented marketer. You have the potential to redefine our team dynamic." Emily felt a surge of pride. Perhaps this was the moment where her growth collided with fate. "And I won't let anything compromise that, including my feelings for you." Jack's expression softened, a flicker of understanding exchanging between them like an unspoken agreement. "Then let's keep this professional, yet embrace the connection we have without letting it hinder our objectives." Her confidence crystallized, and the walls that had once lain between them began to melt. "Yes, I want this to work, Jack, on all levels," she affirmed, her voice steadier than ever. Thus, their conversation transformed from tension to a collaborative partnership, setting a new precedent for their future endeavors. As they spoke about their shared vision for the campaign, Emily felt a solid foundation take shape under her feet, an unyielding confidence forged by her resolve and authenticity. Weeks passed, success blossomed from their newfound synergy, culminating in the campaign launch that eclipsed all previous expectations. Jack proudly introduced her during the meeting, highlighting her work with admiration. The applause echoed, a reverberation not just of accomplishment, but of her complete transformation. Emily stood tall, feeling the weight of pride and accomplishment settle comfortably on her shoulders. She had conquered her fears and proved her worth, not just in the industry but to herself. No longer defined solely by her past struggles, she had emerged as an empowered individual ready to seize her brighter future. As the room celebrated her success, she realized this was the moment she had fought for, not just professional validation, but personal fulfillment, a testament to the balance she had achieved. Emily understood now that she possessed the ability to navigate love and ambition side by side, threading them together to create the beautiful tapestry of her life. Leaving the room, she felt the electric pulse of possibility guiding her forward, each step a testament to her journey, her determination, and the truth that she could indeed have it all. You need to subscribe now to our channel so you won't miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Every click counts. I want to hear your reactions and theories about this ending, so comment below. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this inspiring conclusion. Your support means everything to us.